Welcome back to Evening Skews. Tonight, the unbridled lunacy of the first evening of the Republican National Convention, the infinitely more tragic but equally maniacal continued conduct of American law enforcement, and a whole lot more. But first, as always on the Skews, we begin with a report on American dumbassery. A Lynchburg, Virginia man has quit the same job like 4 goddamn times in the past 2 days. I'm talking, of course, about noted evangelical and former, we think, president of Liberty University, Jerry Falwell Jr., who's been embroiled in controversy since it was revealed that the good reverend is a freak in the sheets. Now, we here at the Skews, we don't kink shame as a rule, but when you professionally traffic in morality, you really ought to watch the dick and butt stuff. Mark, tell us what happened.
Yeah, I mean, the problem wasn't what he was doing, really. It's that if a professor at his school or a student, God forbid, had been caught doing this, they would have been kicked out a long time ago. Just so people know, I'm not an impartial observer here. I'm from Central Virginia.
Right.
Family's from Buckingham County, and I grew up in Appomattox County School. The closest city is Lynchburg, and my family has a very one-sided rivalry, hating the Falwells, going back for several generations. Because Lynchburg is the closest city we'd go to see a movie, which is the best way to put it. Because we couldn't even get decent movie. Okay, so Showgirls didn't come to Lynchburg. I'm still mad about it when I was 16. All right.
Yeah.
Big fan of Saved by the Bell. Jesse was going to get naked in this movie called Showgirls, and the Falwells just said in their moral majority dipshit stuff kept Showgirls out of Lynchburg. Anyway, that sums up how they rule the region with an iron.
Right. That exactly. The Falwells kind of reign over that part of Virginia with their Christian morality. That's a whole thing with them, and has been for a long time. Liberty University, which they preside over, has this very, very strict code of conduct, and among other things, it very clearly defines sexual conduct as only being appropriate between one married man and one married woman. Shit like that. They're really hardcore. So that's the context. And then the son of the patriarch, Jerry Falwell Jr., who's been in charge for a while now, what has happened with him?
Yeah, so he's out of his job because he had a couple of things happen the past few weeks. One, he Instagrammed himself quite clearly drunk, holding a drink with his pants unbuttoned and his arm around a woman who was not his wife. Now, the picture was pretty transparently a joke. He was teasing his wife's assistant that she couldn't button her pants anymore because she's pregnant. But again, he's holding a drink. His students are allowed to drink. He pretty clearly has a drinking problem, by the way. And so his students... Anyway, fast forward. But for about a year and a half, there's been this weird stuff around him and his wife and a guy who's keeps being called a pool boy or a pool attendant in Miami, who they say they met on vacation and then just started hanging out with this 20-year-old pool boy a lot, including giving him a few $1 million to open a nightclub. So
that's such a Miami fucking pool boy side piece situation there, giving him money to open a nightclub.
Pretty clearly, when a middle-aged hanging out with basically a teenage pool boy, giving him a bunch of money, it doesn't take a sex detective to figure out some weird stuff's going on, right? So, but they denied it for years. Anyway, so the guy apparently just go on the record, and Jerry knew that story was in the works, so he gave a preemptive interview to a friendly outlet tried to do the, we had trouble marriage, we're trying to make it work, the reform center talk that usually works for guys in his situation. He tried to blame it on his wife, saying his wife had cheated, but he loved her and they were going to make it work, right? Anyway, so this says, no, actually, the article comes out and he goes, no, the three of us were all in the room together. Jerry liked to watch. And, whatever makes your spice up your marriage, go for it, I guess. But, again, the good people at Liberty University would let him steal all the money he wanted to steal, but this was a bridge too far, so he's out of a job. Although he resigned and then tried to take it back and then resigned again today. I mean, he resigned yesterday early in the day, and then after whiskey o'clock, he retracted his resignation, and then he sobered up and resigned again this morning. So,
I mean, do you think that was just as simple as him just being like, ain't nobody gonna tell me to resign, I'll do whatever the fuck I want, like going with the flow earlier in the day, but then, like you said, having a couple of whiskeys and then being like, I run this shit, I'm King Kong around here, I ain't fucking going nowhere, and then, in the cold sober light of the morning, realizing that probably wasn't going to work, or what?
I mean, maybe it was negotiating the details of his. Maybe he wanted like a bigger, golden parachute, or I don't know. But I don't know what leverage he had, because it has a board. Like, his family founded it, but it's a nonprofit, so it doesn't it's a nonprofit. It has a tax structure that doesn't leave him all powerful. So his power was due to his political clout and leadership and reputation, and those things all took a hit in the last few days. But what he's done with Liberty, all right. A lot of big schools do this now, but he's basically turned Liberty into like a real estate investment fund. So Liberty has like 15,000 on-campus students and 95,000 online students. They've turned it into like a selling degree factory, and they've taken that money and bought a bunch of land with it. Now, what Jerry's done with it is basically establish a kickback scheme where he buys. He'll pay to have land developed. He'll give sweetheart deals to his buddies in real estate to develop the land, and then he'll rent it to different set of buddies on the cheap for way less than the market value after Liberty is paid to develop it. And then I'm assuming that he's getting some sort of trade off. But like one of the people he gave a sweetheart deal to was a giant, I think, fitness studio or tennis courts for his wife's personal trainer, who he said he meant to text. He was showing boudoir photos to employees. He texted them. He accidentally texted some to somebody. His cover story was that he intended to send it to his wife's personal trainer. That's what he said at the time, because he wanted to thank him for all the good work he'd done getting his wife's body tight. That's what he told the newspaper. All right, he's been an absolute embarrassment his whole goddamn life.
Right.
And he wasn't smart enough to keep it together like a lot of second generation, kingpins are. And
also, man, the pool boy, like, it's just all so on the nose, a 20-year-old Miami pool boy, like, it's literally the plot of a porno movie.
Yeah.
But that's like part of the whole thing for these people. Like I said, when you traffic in morality, you really got to watch this shit, because that's the thing. If Jerry Falwell Jr. was a rapper, or a rock star or whatever, no one would give a fuck about any of this, except for maybe the misuse of, official funds, but no one would care that he's a cuck. But like, and that's the other thing too. Like, they're the one, he's a huge supporter of President Trump. They're very hardcore right-wing Christian conservatives. They make a huge deal about cucks, about being a cuck. Liberals are all cucks. They make a huge deal about people's morality, the proper way to live your life. And like, when you do shit like that, you can't get away with just whatever melts your butter, like, they fucking make their own bed and they have to lay in it now, except obviously a lot of times they don't have to lay in it. They just still get to do whatever the fuck they want, but they have to make their bed and they have to, and watch someone else lay in it. But they, I feel like this is another side effect of like the current age we live in with technology and social media and all that. You know what I mean? Like, I think these guys like this are still adjusting to the fact that, like, there ain't as many secrets anymore. Like, people are going to find out about it. Like, these guys have always operated this way, which is to say extremely hypocritically, but used to, they didn't have to worry about that ever being a problem. But now it can be a fucking problem, and I, for one, am all for that.
Yeah, I mean, it's always been that, like,
reaping what you sow, right? Ain't that what his?
Well, I mean, I would hesitate. Like, there's not even too much hypocrisy racked up in Jerry Jr. because, like, he did run a Christian right college that was like branding for expanding. Like, if you want to turn your school into a profit online thing, areas all around the world, recruiting people to buy from you is helpful, but Jerry Jr. is not a minister. His brother, after his dad died and they divided up his the empire, his brother got Thomas Rowe Baptist Church. His brother's a minister, and Jerry took the business empire. He outmaneuvered his brother to be head of the college because that's where the money was, right? So, hold
on, but you said you don't think there's that much hypocrisy going on here with Jerry Falwell?
There is. I'm saying I'm not going to sit here and pretend that Jerry Jr. is necessarily a huge believer in the good book.
Well, yeah, right. Of course not. But he does, though, right? I mean, if just by being the president, of a college like Liberty University, which is notorious for that hardcore Bible thumping morality police bullshit, just by being the president of that, he is presenting himself as, a follower of the good Lord and the good book and
sure
the way you ought to live.
Sure, just but if I play for the Cowboys doesn't mean I'm a fan of the Cowboys. It's a good paycheck. It's like
but that dude, I feel like you're almost kind of letting him off the hook with that. You're right about the cowboy analogy. I get that they're not fans of the team. It is just a paycheck, but it ain't the same with something like this. Like they make their entire existence off of telling people how to live, and the way they tell people how to live doesn't encompass watching a 20-year-old pool boy fuck your wife in a Miami nightclub or whatever.
No, I'm not saying there's no. I'm saying like he's not a minister. Like if Jerry Senior had been caught like this, it would have been like pure hypocrisy. I'm saying Jerry Junior just in this for the money. I mean Jerry Senior was too. But that's a whole different conversation. But my point is that like he's mainly a businessman, and what he was selling just happened to be salvation as opposed to in degrees as
oil or whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
He could have been the board of any other con artist type company. He was doing Amway. It just happened to be Bibles instead of like whatever else Amway sells.
Okay, I hear you on that. I totally hear you on that. But what I'm saying is, like you said, he could have been on the board of any corp. You name it. It could have been fucking whatever. Post-it notes or cars or tires or whatever. It's just any multinational corporation. But I'm saying, like, if he was no one would give a shit about any of this. You know what I mean? Like that's that's the whole point. If he was just that kind of businessman, it would be fine to watch a 20-year-old pool boy fuck your wife in a hotel room and buy him nightclubs and shit. Like that wouldn't be a problem.
My point is that like the wing of the Republican Party he ended up in was actually a more natural fit for him, right? Like the Donald. We'll come back to Michael Cohen and the pictures and stuff in a second, but because that's where the real political scandal here is. But the with you froze for a second, I don't know if you know that or not. But
yeah, I can hear
you. So like the guys like the guys that are into. I don't know why all these guys like watching their wife get railed. It's a very weird subculture they're in. But like Roger Stone is into that. That came out publicly a long time ago. He was posting ads and local news classified ads, like asking for dudes to come have sex with his wife. It came out that Paul Manafort, same thing. That's what got him in trouble with his daughter's text messages got hacked. That's the reason his daughters were talking about him at all. And then when the text message, a murderer. So it's a very weird subculture of sex perverts in this wing of the Republican Party, and the fact that one of them worked in a Christian college is ended up being, perfect. But anyway, so the thing about blackmail that people don't like think about is like if you do blackmail right, the victim thanks you for it because what you've done is you've helped them keep their secret, right? And that appears to be what Michael Cohen. That's how Church of Scientology works. And I live in LA, so probably don't get kidnapped for saying that. So Michael Cohen apparently helped Jerry Jr. get back some photos of his wife with the pool boy, and then conveniently endorsed Trump. Had Trump come speak at Liberty, and a bunch of students tried to protest and didn't show up. So I don't know.
Right. Well, you're talking about it being a prevalent in a certain wing of the Republican Party. It's that whole doth protest too much situation with them. You know what I mean? Like, again, like that, they're the ones who made cuck as a word and as an insult into a thing in the popular lexicon in America recently. Like, they did that. And then, like you said, it comes out that so many of the prominent members of that part of the Republican Party fit the bill in a literal fashion. But it's just like going back years with the most homophobic members of Congress and high-level Republicans, the ones who were the most hardcore about the scourge of homosexuality and that type of thing, all ended up getting caught sucking some dude off in an airport bathroom or whatever. Like, it always goes down that way,
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I don't know. So, all right, moving on in again much more tragic news. The police are still up to their old tricks. Kenosha, Wisconsin Police Department has continued the everlasting tradition of making a mockery of the supposed slogan of American law enforcement to protect and serve. When over the weekend they shot a 29-year-old black man named Jacob Blake 7 times in the back. Mr. Blake, so far, thankfully, is alive. He has survived, but at the very least, it looks like he's going to be paralyzed from the waist down. Now, it turns out the Kenosha Police Department 3 years ago had agreed to purchase and institute a policy for body cams, where they wore body cams all the time, but then just never did that. So none of them had body cams on or anything like that. As always happens with these cases, the only reason anybody even knows about it is because a bystander, a neighbor in this case, happened to catch it on video. And that's part of the thing. Like I've talked about this before. I know it blows my fucking mind the way, like, all these cops in all these cities, they all know, they're intensely aware that every cell phone camera and every Twitter feed in this country is trained on them right now, right? And rather than like taking a page out of chapter 1 of the villain's handbook and, laying low for a while or playing it cool until shit dies down or whatnot, they just fucking keep on about their business, if not ramping it up. Like, it's crazy to me. I know it's like it happens so often it can't be surprising anymore, but I really think when you step back and look at it, it's fucking insane that something like this, it's crazy that it ever happens. Like, it's always inexcusable and it should never happen, but it is doubly crazy that something like this happens in the context of an environment that we are all living in right now, and it just seems to me like it just shows that, like, they still don't give a fuck, man, at all. Like, because if they did, I don't think you'd see stories like this, at least in this moment.
Yeah, I mean, that video is hard to watch for a lot of reasons, but like you can count like 40 points in that 15 seconds where the officer could have made a bunch of different choices. I still haven't seen a good explanation of like what they suspected him of, that they had their gun drawn in the first place. The guy's wearing a wife beater and sweatpants. It's pretty clearly he doesn't have any weapon. They have their gun pointed at him. They showed up to a domestic violence call that did not involve him. It was 2 women arguing. It was a verbal confrontation that Jacob was trying to stop, apparently, and they had their gun pointed at him. He goes to get in his car because when you're in a free society, if police don't have a reason to detain you, you can leave.
You can leave, right?
You can leave. There's the police are wrong so many points here. I don't understand why when you have your gun drawn and people are screaming at you, you're like, oh man, maybe if I'm going to get rough, I should put the gun away and go with the taser, baton, my hands, using my words like an adult. Right. And it just like so. Yeah, I saw defenders of the police being like, well, what if he was going to the car to get a gun? Why would he be going to get a gun? He has no reason to shoot the officer because they have no cause to arrest him. So the whole thing makes no sense, and I don't even know what to say about it anymore. They're out of control. Right.
I mean, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with it, too. It's like, I don't know what else to even say about it because it's the same shit every time. Like you were saying, there's always this justification comes out later. They start digging up, like, what his criminal record was and that type of thing, and it's like you're basically saying that all that yes, they didn't know that, but even if they did, it's like you're telling me that justifies a literal death sentence, and I just don't. No, that ain't it. I don't care if he was a drug addict or had a criminal record or whatever, any of that shit. He shouldn't have been, and he wasn't. Again, the guy survived. But he shouldn't have been, shot 7 times in the back in the street. It doesn't warrant that kind of response. And I just don't understand what people don't understand about that. But it's obviously it's an understatement to say it's a widespread issue in America right now, and it's still an ongoing thing. The protests, I think, are definitely for sure making an impact. But, the opposition is still out in force, too. In my home state, our state legislature in the state of Tennessee continues to embarrass the shit out of me. And as it relates to this subject in particular, the Tennessee state legislature has just passed a new law that is aimed at protesters. It's now a felony in the state of Tennessee because the law was signed. It was signed into law by the governor, Bill Lee, who's a piece of shit, this week. And the law makes it a felony for protesters to camp out overnight on state property. And this comes after a couple weeks of protesters camping out in front of the state capitol building. So they make it a felony to camp out overnight on state property. And if you're convicted, you can lose your voting rights and you can face up to 6 years in prison. And it's such a clearly targeted piece of legislation, that's just pointed at just protesters. And again, not fucking rioters and anarchists or anything like that. Protesters. And I don't know. Again, I don't know what else to say about it other than shit like this makes me sick, and I just hate to see it coming out of my home state.
Yeah, it's so transparent. If you protest in a way we don't like, we're going to take away your right to vote.
Right.
Right. And by the way, just for shits and giggles, let me read the text of the First Amendment to you for a second. Congress shall make no law prohibiting the right of the people to peaceably assemble and petition the government for redress of grievances. So I don't really. You're gathering on public property, which your tax dollars pay for, to petition the government and redress of grievances. It's plain letter law that I don't see how this survives any sort of court challenge. But
yeah,
they can threaten people.
Right, and just in terms of like practicality of it, other opponents of the legislation, like the ACLU, have pointed out that this kind of just encourages like homeless people to go sleep on somebody's yard or something, like private property. Like if you're going to get a felony and 6 years in prison for sleeping on a bench in front of the fucking state house or whatever, then now you'll just go sleep on somebody's front porch or whatever. And that's not. I'm not worried about where the homeless are sleeping at, personally. I'm just saying it's another, you break it down at every level and none of it makes sense, is my point.
Well, as a person who's definitely going to end up living on the street eventually, I'm a little worried about it. But none of these are good ideas, strictly speaking. They don't lead anywhere good. And I don't know I know what they're up to. They don't think ahead for half a second.
Yeah. And it's not just Tennessee, obviously. Obviously, it's all over the country. But one of the more egregious examples is also in your home state, Mark, in Portsmouth, Virginia, which I don't know what part of the state that's in. Is that also your neck of the woods, or is
that's down near?
Else?
It's down near the ocean, near Virginia Beach, kind of.
But Portsmouth, Virginia cops they're wilding. They have arrested a whole slew of public officials who all happen to be black. And ostensibly, they've arrested them for felonies related to the destruction of a Confederate monument, which I guess did happen, but it's still not justified. And it's like these are a state senator, multiple officials from the NAACP, the local NAACP chapter, a school board member, upstanding members of the community, pillars of the community. Not that it would matter if they were just regular people either, but I'm saying pillars of the community type people in Portsmouth, Virginia, all black, have been rounded up and charged with crimes by the Portsmouth Police Department over this type of shit recently. So,
could be a felony.
Places where people are out of control.
It's a felony charge of injury to a monument in excess of $1,000. They got they arrested 3 public defenders too. I'm sure that's a coincidence. Right. Then after people raised a stink about that, some guy got riled up on a Facebook group and found some obscure thing in a city code where a citizen can go to a magistrate and get an arrest warrant for a public official who engages in an interference with the appointment of a city official, because the vice mayor, who happens to be this daughter of the state senator who got arrested, the vice mayor and city councilwoman called for the police chief to be fired. And so he construed that as interference with the appointment of a public official. So he went to the magistrate and got a warrant, which the police department, sheriff's department were all too happy to enforce and serve. So I mean, this is like the local city version of a military coup. They're not even being subtle about it. It's crazy.
Right.
Yeah.
It is crazy. No, again, the shit is insane. I just don't like. I don't understand that there's no one at the higher levels in organizations like that saying like, "Hey, maybe not right now. Should we be, doing this type of shit?" But again, they just like they don't see it that way. Like they're the heroes, we're the villains, and they don't. They're going to keep doing what they're doing because they're in the right as far as they're concerned. But on to. I want to call it a more fun subject, although it also is terrifying, like everything in America right now. But it is at least easier to laugh at. The first night of the Republican convention was something else, man. After Donald Trump Jr.'s speech, the word cocaine was trending on Twitter globally because of
cocaine. Cocaine, Evita. Loch Ness Monster.
Loch Ness Monster.
It was all trending because of the convention.
Yeah, where do you even start with all the shit that went on last night? So, yeah, Donald Trump Jr. coming out there looking and acting all coked up. He called Joe Biden the Loch Ness Monster of the swamp, and then tried to make that analogy work. Saying he pops up every now and then to run for president, as the Loch Ness Monster is famously known to do, and then disappears for years at a time after that. His eyes were all red and like moist. He had moist eyes going on and just not a great look. And then his girlfriend, Kimberly Guilfoyle, who's the ex-girlfriend or ex-wife of Gavin Newsom.
Ex-wife of our fine governor in California, Trey.
Ex-wife of our governor in California, Gavin Newsom. Kimberly Guilfoyle had to go up there and upstage him by screaming like a lunatic about all kinds of shit. And that was sort of the theme of the night, was fear-mongering. High-volume fear-mongering, which is funny because that was their... some of their biggest criticisms of what the Democrats did at the DNC was how negative we were. Yeah, imagine that, being negative in a year like 2020. But they criticized the Democrats for being overly negative in the DNC last week, and then come out and they're literally out here screaming about Democrats killing the next generation of conservatives, through abortions or whatever, inviting Mexican gangs to live next door to you, forcibly removing your guns, disbanding the police, all this wild shit. And I tweeted something about this earlier. It's like, what's funny about that to me is they also act like one of the major problems with Democrats is that Democrats are, for lack of a better word, Democrats are huge pussies. They're cowards, right, that are weak-willed and lack the resolve to actually enact any change. They're too overly sensitive. They're overly sensitive snowflakes that can't get anything done. They say that, and then they come out here and are like, they're going to command the gangs and murder the Lord, and it's like, which one is it, man?
Yeah.
Crazy.
Joe Biden's going to kill God. I'm not sure the mechanism. It's like a knife fight or leg wrestling. I'm not sure how he's going to do it. But yeah.
Yeah, but you had Herschel Walker giving a speech. Okay, that's another thing. Talking about hypocrisy, they another big criticism was having Eva Longoria give kind of MC the DNC early last week, and then they open up with John Voight. I don't know.
Conservatives are obsessed with show business to a degree. Like I work in show business, and I think about it less than they do. I've been thinking about why, and my only theory is that it's the only thing they don't control is pop culture, because that's dominated by young people who tend to be more libertine and socially accepting until they get older, and so more cosmopolitan, I guess I would say. So it's like they're just so jealous that the Dems get all the good celebs or whatever, and it's like you control the presidency, the judiciary, half of Congress, 30-some state houses, most of the governorships, Wall Street, every corporate board, and so all social media basically. And you're also, but you're worried that Chance the Rapper might do a Hillary Clinton benefit or whatever. It's extremely weird.
Yes, it is. Man, so Kimberly Guilfoyle, right? What? And this has been pointed out multiple times today, but she's on there screaming like a lunatic. And I actually didn't realize last night until I read it today, but like that wasn't live. That was pre-taped. her doing that. A lot of these speeches were pre-taped, and it's also like there's no one there who can tell her maybe to, not do this. And I'm gonna try to pull this up real quick, Mark. You can't hear it, can you?
I cannot.
Nope. Yeah, well, sorry about that. Anyway, y'all get the drift. You know what she was doing. Oh, hang on a second. Hang on. Sorry. It's new software. I'm trying to figure it out.
Don't let them kill future generations because they told you and brainwashed you and fed you lies that you weren't good enough.
I think you brought up, what she said and how she said it.
So yeah, screaming about killing future generations because of our lies and this type of stuff.
I remember I'm not quoting exactly, but liberals want to control what you see and hear so they can control how you live. And 4 more years, it's only gonna get better. And she does this weird, aggressive grin to an empty. Yelling in an empty room is always awkward.
That's another thing. Yes, she holds her hands to the heavens and screams, "The best is yet to come." And I don't like. This is a thing we've talked about before. Like, I can't make my brain understand the brain of someone who watches that, who isn't like a billionaire. Billionaires or whatever aside. Other than them, I don't understand the brain of somebody who, in this country, in this point in time, watching someone scream, "Hey, you ain't seen nothing yet," and not being fucking terrified by that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how anyone with any kind of sanity could act like things are going great right now. It blows my fucking mind. Whatever you think the reasons for our problems are, if you somehow blame the Democrats for the problems we have or whatever, okay, fine. I mean, I don't get that either, but like, you at least got to admit that like shit is bad right now, I would think, but apparently not. No, things are great, and the best is yet to come.
I guess you could see this as growing pains until like we achieve pushing back to a semi-apartheid state. I guess that's the promise, and I don't really know. Anyway, I can't put myself in their mind. I mean, like, look, I don't think every Trump voter is dumb. I think people vote for a lot of different reasons, but I do think these people in charge of this are dumb, and nobody wants to be. This has been the problem with Trump from the beginning. He didn't have a good campaign because no one of any sort of character or intelligence wanted to be associated with him. Same thing when he got in the White House. He only got the dregs because no one wanted to be associated with him. And the same thing with, like, you look at the convention speakers, like 40% of them are like had the last name Trump because nobody wants to speak on his behalf. They drafted Tim Scott into doing it, who's basically the only sitting senator who's willing to, because he doesn't have an election soon, and they needed a black Republican to go up there and say cops are awesome.
Yeah. And tonight, and I don't this. No, actually, sorry. I guess this got canceled. But anyway, tonight was shaping up to be even worse. Probably will end up being even worse. But in particular, just talking about the lineup they had, there was Marianne Mendoza was scheduled to speak tonight. And again, apparently this just changed very late in the game. She got kicked off of it. She was tweeting out anti-Semitic conspiracy theories connected to QAnon. And I don't mean somebody dug up an old tweet that the Trump people couldn't know about. She tweeted it like an hour ago. Right before she's going on to speak at the Republican National Convention. This woman, and Marianne, she's like an angel. She's an angel mom. Her kid died. Her kid was killed by a drunk driver who was an illegal immigrant. And I'm a dad. I feel sorry for anybody that's lost a child, obviously, but like, politicizing, making that, they're turning that into the sort of racist dog whistling about immigration and whatnot is obviously complete bullshit. But that was the box she was set to check tonight, and mere hours before she was going to go on and check that box, she was on Twitter urging her followers to watch this or to investigate this thread about a QAnon thread about a Jewish plot to enslave the world.
Yeah.
So that's what we're dealing with. Honestly, I'm surprised she got nixed. I'm not gonna lie, like that. I'm surprised that they actually said, "Okay, no, you ain't gonna go on." Who do they fill that slot with? Well, they just fucking play Lee Greenwood for, on loop for 15 minutes or however long she had until the next spot. Like, who did they have in the wings as an alternate?
They give Kid Rock the stretch sign.
yeah. They give Kid Rock giving it this.
Do an extra 5. Yeah, I mean, like, I don't. I'm surprised they didn't push through, because one thing Trump has figured out, and he's smarter than a lot of people when it comes to this stuff, is like people have limits to their outrage, and people also have a pretty normal expectation for how things work. So if she had just let her talk, it would have been like a 2-hour news cycle, and people don't really grasp what it is or what's wrong with it. Like maybe 12 million people are watching. And she's not going to say anything about QAnon on TV, probably.
Right.
They probably a dumb button if she does. But like it would have been some obscure story. Like I mean, we were talking earlier with the weird sex stuff. Like if you have a normal sex scandal, the media knows how to report on it. Like if you caught having an affair, if like you were having sex with an intern or someone underage, the old a live boy or dead girl thing that politicians should say about what ruins careers. But if you're doing some weird sex stuff that the mainstream media just finds a little hinky and gross, they absolutely have no idea how to cover it. You know what I'm saying? So, so that's why, like, if that pool boy hadn't come forward, Falwell would have gotten off, because no one. It's like, what do you say about, cuckery? But how the DC media has not figured out how to report on QAnon in a way that doesn't amplify it. So
yes, well, and speaking of QAnon, it's really gaining steam, Mark. They're picking up some other conspiracy theory communities who are jumping on board. Most notably, right now, Bigfoot, the Bigfoot people. And look, I don't want to speak for the entire Bigfoot community. All right, I'm sure there's some Bigfoot Americans right now who are not behind this, but prominent members of the Bigfoot community have come out officially endorsing the QAnon theory and thus supporting Donald Trump. And, that is a pretty big blow.
Can we see the video? Because it's pretty awesome.
Yes, if you give me a minute, But you talk about it for a minute while I pull it up.
So before it's Trey, one thing that's happening, and what makes the Q community so dangerous, besides the fact that Facebook is working its damnedest to make it a thing. Q Facebook pages have grown like 6-fold over since COVID started, because people are home and they're bored and they're sad and paranoid and lonely. So a lot of the different conspiracy communities are merging into a unified theory, and new moms join wellness groups to maybe try to sell essential oils and get drawn into anti-vax stuff and then slide into Q. And that kind of thing is happening a lot, right? So you basically can't be on Facebook now and not be urged to join a community that's going to turn into a Q fan page. That being said, the Bigfoot this is a game changer here. I'm thinking about joining now.
I love how you referred to it as a unified theory. Like that's what they're working towards.
Look,
which that's also what physicists are working towards, is a unified to explain the physical world. But fuck what they're doing. These guys, they're
maybe I meant so. What's happened is you got Marin County anti-vax wine moms are now in the same cinematic universe of conspiracy theories as 3%ers, like militia types, Boogaloo Boys, Q people, and they're all sharing theories, and they got their cork boards, and they're doing what you do with the crazy cork boards is you're drawing connections.
Right.
So if you're against, if you think Big Pharma is maybe a little too loose with what the vaccines they give out to babies, And here comes somebody saying, well, actually, did you know that the COVID is just a cover up trying to get us Bill Gates to microchip us? And then somebody else is like, COVID's a conspiracy theory. They're just trying to take Trump down using COVID because he's on the verge of uncovering all the pedophiles who terrify children before they kill them and eat them because the fear generates a chemical called, I can't pronounce it,
adrenochrome or whatever.
Yeah. So like it's a fairly it's a nice it's a Rube Goldberg machine of a bunch of stupid things, but if you believe one, there's no reason you can't believe the next one.
Right, yeah. It's just people going like, yeah, you know what else, man? And then hitting them with this. All right, no one could stomach all of this, but here's some of what you're talking about.
Janu is what they refer to themselves as, otherwise known as the Bigfoot Forest people, the Sasquatch, the Bigfoot. So anyway, if you read the Q&A in my second book,
Second book.
Befriending
He has 2 books.
People, you will see that Trump has said a few different times that they are assisting the White Hats. Now, if you're wondering what the heck does that mean, assisting the White Hats? Well, let's find out, shall we?
Okay.
New age of information.
Let's not find out. He shows a QAnon conspiracy video that makes no fucking sense. But it opens with him. Yeah, he's saying he's the official ambassador for the Janu. I think
he's a
Janu.
Dejanu.
Dejanu.
Anyway, he's giving
the forest people.
Yeah,
Sam Squatches.
Yeah, he's giving Sasquatches like a Native American tribal name.
Yeah.
And apparently their chief has joined forces with Trump.
Yeah.
And Trump has apparently announced this several times, Trey, as he put in his second book.
That's a big endorsement, man. The chief of the Bigfoot people get Chief Orlock or whatever his name is.
We're breaking news here on the evening Skews.
Right? Yeah. Bigfoot has come out in support of Donald Trump. It's funny to think about. We were texting about this last night. It's funny to think about Bigfoot being like a bigot, like being like turns out Bigfoot's just a horrible racist. That's why he stayed in the woods this whole time, Bigfoot's like, yeah, you ever seen a Jew in the woods? Exactly. He ain't coming to the cities.
He's in the woods because of the Democrats' fair housing policies made the suburbs disastrous.
Yeah, unsuitable. That's why Bigfoots keep to themselves, is they can't stomach Mexicans and homosexuals and whatever.
They took all the Bigfoot jobs.
It's all so fucking crazy, man. But that's not like, okay, a quick divergence, because I was thinking about this. We were talking about Mendoza earlier, and she's saying right before she was supposed to go on and speak at the RNC, she's given this, she's encouraging her followers to look into this QAnon theory about the global Jewish conspiracy, Jews run the world and everything. And part of that was like talking about this well-established hoax among anti-Semites about the elders of Zion or whatever. That was part of it. And she's like, the elders of Zion are real. You need to look into what they're going after. And what I'm getting at is like, there's so many things I don't understand about this. But how does that square with Republicans and conservatives like general support of Israel the state? Do you know what I mean? Like, that's always been wild to me, that like being hardcore supportive of Israel is a conservative ideology in America, right? But yet they also are the ones always screaming about Jews running the world and all this type of shit. Like, how is that even supposed to work?
Well, they don't support Israel because they like Jewish people. They support Israel because they think they're going to bring about the end of the world and Jesus is going to come back. So but the thing is, like, how complicit Israel's been in that, and that's because they, like, Netanyahu understands this and is in favor of it, and like he still goes, like, his biggest allies besides Trump are like Viktor Orban, who's a big right wing like dictator in Eastern Europe, who's like a big anti-Zionist conspiracy theorist, but he also he hates Muslim immigrants, right? So basically, every state of Israel and American evangelicals have both agreed that hatred for Muslims outranks everything, including whether people hate them or not. If you're a Jewish citizen of Israel, so I don't like it's all pretty idiotic. But like it's weird. There's a bunch of like black swan events happening to make everything so much worse at the same time. The FBI Twitter account tweeted out a link to their file on the Protocols of the Elders of Zion the other day. And if you saw that, and conspiracy and anti-Semite conspiracy theorists went crazy, but it's just an automated FBI bot that, in response to a Freedom of Information Act request when people ask for FBI files, the FBI, once they clear it and delete classified information, will delete it. And of course, they did research into this document that was very popular among violent separatists. So like it's just, but like people took that as like support, just like when Trump said QAnon people love me last week at a press conference, the Q people took that as, oh, we're right, we've been onto something the whole time. It's time to
well, he said it might be two different press conferences. Who can even keep up? But the one I saw, they asked him about QAnon, and they said, "What do you think about QAnon conspiracy theory that your administration is helping to save the world from a global cabal of pedophilic cannibals or whatever?" And Trump was just like, "Is that supposed to be bad? Like, we are saving the world," and just left it at that. So
yeah, I mean, saving the world is a good thing, Trey. Yeah.
So, all right, let's go to the comments over here and see what we got. Steve Moshk says, breaking news, Melania caught on tape bad-mouthing the Don and his kids.
That's the book her former friend assistant put out, right?
Yes, or is about to put out. But that's the thing, like, who can even keep up with all the different, caught on tape shit talking about Donald Trump? Because I know just a couple days before that there was the same thing, but with his niece taping his sister, his older sister, who's a judge, and his sister was talking shit about Trump and saying how awful he is and she can't stand him. And now you got Melania doing the same thing. And it's like, has there literally ever been anybody that isn't currently under his thumb, like isn't currently benefiting from his reign, who has ever said anything good about him? You know what I mean? Like, every single time anything comes out from someone who, like, has been associated with Trump in the past, it's universally negative. Even the people closest to him, his own family.
None of this stuff hurts him, because the people who like him, one of the things they like about him is that he fucking sucks. Like it's not like they think it's good that he's mean and dumb, because it's like, I don't know why, but they enjoy it. They enjoy it how much it frustrates people like you and me who are like, look at this fucking idiot, and we get mad about it because, he's going to he's costing us a year of our lives hiding in our houses because of a coronavirus and economic opportunities and, all the things that go along with that. But they're like, ha ha ha, triggered the libs. Here's my mug of liberal tears. They love that shit. It's great. But he knows he sucks too, by the way. Like, this isn't like there was a pair of his biographers when we were listening to on a podcast years ago. We're talking about, they tried to get him to be introspective. They would just ask him question prompts. Like, they literally asked him if he had a friend, and he thought about it and goes like, "What do you mean? Like someone I would go out to dinner with and talk to?" And they said,
"Now, when you say friend,
yeah." And
did you elaborate on that? What?
And he goes, "Well, then no." Like, he just doesn't. But there are people like that. I mean, some people just they don't care about any sort of human relationship. Some of them are really high functioning. The Kobe Bryant family famously was proud that he didn't have any friends. He was too busy playing basketball. But another one. This is the funny one. But they asked him who his ideal dinner companion was, and he thought about it for a minute, and he said, a hot broad with a huge rack.
Thought about it. It took him a minute to come up with that. Yeah,
he considered it. One of those. It's like one of those things. Like, who's your biggest hero? Who would you love to talk to about their life experiences? He's like,
titties.
Yeah. I mean, just for a minute, imagine him reading a poem and thinking about it. Just think.
Yeah. Jamie Horowitz said, "We're laughing about all this now, but it's actually terrifying. Most of Trump's base actually believes this shit." And you're right, but you're 100% right. But it's one of those things where, like, Oh, you gotta laugh at it, you know. Otherwise, you'll fucking go insane.
I actually think ridicule is probably the way to like the way that the mainstream centrist reporters talk about this stuff. It's sort of like distant bemusement where they're not really familiar with it. It's kind of like this cute, adorable fringe conspiracy theory that doesn't really matter. I think that is not helpful, but I think if you actually understand it enough to talk in their language and make fun of it and point out how fucking stupid they are, I think it inoculates more people from signing on to it. You know, does that make sense? I mean, honestly, like,
yes,
I don't have any other weapons but roasting stuff. I'm a comedy writer on a Facebook show. I don't know what else to do.
No, yeah, well, I mean, yeah. Also, again, like, I think that just like when people take shit like that so seriously, which they all do, I think one of the best things you can do if you're talking about combating it is just laughing in its face. You know what I mean? Like, because of the way they look at it all, you know?
Yeah.
But I don't know. Let's see here. People say, Carrie Lee says, Mark's exactly right. They're trying to bring on the end of the world, cause the rapture.
Trey didn't get dragged. He's a rare Southerner. He didn't get dragged to Sunday school for 18 straight years. So this stuff elides him sometimes.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I grew up basically a-religious, and it's always, yeah, it's weird. I mean, like, I don't know. I've been obviously aware of all this type of shit my whole life, but I haven't been, like, immersed in it and bombarded by it like so many of my, fellow Southerners have been. And, yeah, it's wild to me. But let's see here. Kathy Ann Crane said, I've never seen a vape like that. That's just a Juul. That's all it is. All the kids have them. They're very popular. Let's see here. All right. Donnie Anderson says, Mike Pompeo is about to speak from Israel live at the RNC. Yeah. That's why Mendoza was removed. She was the slot immediately before Pompeo. But they were both planned to be there, right? Because I know people were upset about so Pompeo, the Secretary of State, is currently in Israel and is speaking at the RNC from there, and they've made this whole show of saying, like, all the cost associated with him doing that will come from campaign funding and all that, and they won't be, like, taxpayer dollars and whatever else. But people are pissed off because it's like he's doing this essentially in his official capacity as the Secretary of State on a diplomatic mission or whatever, speaking at the RNC and endorsing Donald Trump.
Yeah, I mean, all these guardrails we've had to keep things working, where we do wink and a nod and pretend that things aren't political. That, like, the State Department is independent of political campaigns, just out the fucking window. Which is like a pretty clever way to solicit more foreign interference. It's like if the State Department would be on your side if you help the Trump campaign win. But yeah, I didn't make the connection between the anti-Semitic conspiracy theory and Pompeo actually being in Israel right now. That could definitely be a reason. But also, as we just talked about, the State of Israel has basically formally endorsed anti-Semitic conspiracy theories by how they pick their alliances abroad, because being right-wing is more important than not wanting to kill them.
Yeah. Zahia Rizik said, I hadn't heard about Melania talking shit about the Donald, but yeah, apparently that's coming in the next tell-all book.
Yeah, so
a new one comes out every week.
So apparently this woman who had a falling out with Melania over whatever, was Melania's best friend, like executive assistant, I think. I think she's the one who helped plan the inauguration, and a bunch of money went missing too. That might have been part of the fallout, was that she stole from the Trumps, which you can help the Trumps steal, but you can't steal from the Trumps until they get their cut first. She apparently recorded a bunch of conversations with Melania where she said that Ivanka sucks and Don Jr. is an idiot and no one likes him and she doesn't like her husband. I mean, like, everyone knows all this stuff. I mean, what's it going to do? Make their marriage bad?
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, no one who might have their mind changed by any of that is going to give a shit about any of it. Multiple people have brought up Richard Spencer endorsing Joe Biden. Richard Spencer, the noted alt-right neo-Nazi here in America, officially endorsed Joe Biden. And Joe Biden officially renounced his endorsement and called him repugnant and said, no, we don't want your support or whatever. So that did happen. But I don't like, we were also texting about this a little bit last night. Like,
It doesn't matter.
Am I supposed to am I supposed to give a fuck about this? About what? Like, I don't give a fuck about any of that dude's other opinions. Like,
No.
am I supposed to care about him endorsing Joe? Is that supposed to mean something? Because I don't see how it does. I don't believe it
anything he says. So
Right,
he doesn't
of course.
do I think that he would rather Joe Biden be president? I honestly do, because Trump's presidency has not been good for him. Like,
Right.
these guys need an enemy in power to fundraise and profit off of, right?
Right. Like Obama, having Obama there for 8 years gives them something to point at and scream about.
Yeah.
Which elevates their bullshit.
Hate groups and the Obama years were the best years that hate groups and militias had in years, because of the paranoia around having a black president. And
Right.
he probably won't. And literally, look how Trump's since Trump got elected, Richard Spencer has gone broke and his wife has left him. He's living with his mom, who another right winger, if I remember this story right, another right winger had a rivalry with, alt-right dude, had the SWAT sent to his mom's house. So I'm saying is the inauguration day, when Richard Spencer was talking about his Pepe the Frog pin and got punched in the face by a dude from Black Bloc, that might have been the high point of Trump's presidency for Richard Spencer.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I feel like a lot of people were treating it like that was indicative of something, but this dude's whole thing is he's a troll, like he's a classic troll. You don't feed the trolls. Like, who gives a shit who he's endorsing or what he's saying,
He was very close college friends with Stephen Miller. I'm surprised Stephen Miller hasn't gotten him a job in the White House.
Right. Yeah. Let's see here. Let's see what we got over. Orion Erickson said, "Trey, how stoned are you right now?" I'm not stoned at all.
The people think your vape's weed, I think, is what's happening.
If y'all think this is weed, it's not. Here's the thing. I'm one of the biggest lightweights on planet Earth where weed is concerned. I live in California. I do fuck with some legal weed, but very, 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 very lightly. Like, I'm the type that if I get like a 5 milligram gummy and I have to cut it into pieces to take it. That's the truth, because otherwise I will commune with the void in a fetal position for 8 hours if I don't. Like, it's like that with me. So I just can't. I got nothing against it, but it don't.
Well, that is exactly why I take 10 milligrams before I go to sleep. But yeah, I got you.
Right. So people bringing up Kellyanne Conway, who is leaving. Apparently,
Yeah.
she's taking her leave from Trump country. I don't know. I mean, my knee jerk reaction to that is that she thinks a big L is coming. That she think, like a rat off a sinking ship type of thing. Maybe that's not it, but that's where my head goes.
Same thing as Richard Spencer. I don't believe anything these people say or do. It's like whatever's going on in her family is a tremendous branding exercise. That's one thing that's happening. Because if they successfully established George, her, and the daughter now Claudia as voices on 3 distinct parts of political online. The daughter makes socialist TikToks and tweets.
Right.
The husband is a never Trumper who's making money off that gig now, and now she's well centered to make a killing in mainstream Republican politics. If she can avoid the ugly downfall, if she can start getting gigs, she'll be on the board of corporations and stop lobbying especially if Trump wins. So I don't know how much of Claudia's online presence is a hustle and how much of it is a teenager going through a really rough time. And either way, I feel bad giving too much attention to it. And she's the part of me makes me think she's being honest and just going through a really rough time. Is she accused her mom of physical abuse? So either way, that family needs some intense therapy. Either because Claudia's being honest or because she isn't. So either way, it's bad.
Right. Well, we are pretty much out of time. I want to do a quick shout out here, even though I'm not a fan personally, but Mark's Dallas Mavericks. I've been digging what they're doing. Y'all should be watching the NBA playoffs. Fucking 21-year-old Luka Doncic. Let me tell y'all, this kid is something else. He's they tipped off an hour ago. For all I know,
Well, we're down by 20 right now.
Down by 20. That's all right. They've been there. They've been there before. He'll bring them back.
Down about the same time.
That's right.
The other
That's
night.
right. So anyway, yeah, shout out to Luka and the Mavs. Yeah, if you ain't watching basketball, you should be. Shit's hitting.
I lived in. I'm not some fair weather fan, by the way. I lived in Dallas for 11 years, and that's when I became a Mavericks fan. So yeah.
Right. All right. Well, that's it for another edition of Evening Skews. We'll be back in 48 hours on Thursday. We'll see you right here, same place, same time. Love y'all very much. See you bye. Say bye, Mark.